My friends, they're like, wait, what do you mean you're in Atlanta and you haven't done one thing out there? You've been in Atlanta for like 4 months now. You haven't done anything? Like, well, I went hiking on my one day off. And they're like, that's it? But we had no life. And if you questioned it, you weren't serious.
First of all, so just tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into the business.
I grew up over here, like north of Dallas, and I moved to Las Vegas for school. And I ended up living there for about almost 8 years. And then I moved back to Dallas. And I was helping family with some things, so I wasn't working that much. And I started working for one of the, what we're here about, called Blue Chip. And I thought it would be like somewhat similar, great fit for me because I did similar things to it. I was a merchandising specialist, so I was used to helping in sales and getting the word out there about products. I went to school for marketing, so years of experience of just setting up events and doing demos, all things like that. And then I was doing really well at it, so I decided to go for it full time. And that's kind of how I got to where I was.
So you came across the film and the videos while you were still in the business.
I actually had just left
Okay, okay.
about maybe a week later. I just left 2 months ago, and I saw the video and I sent it to one of my friends who was also in the office. And she called me the day she called me to tell me she was quitting. I was like, "Wait, you don't know you're already fired?" She's like, "I'm fired?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what they told me 3 days ago." And she had no clue she was fired. And she's like, "I was just gonna go and quit."
Okay.
And but I sent her the video, and so she started watching them all, and then we would send back different ones, all the follow-ups, and we try like sending to the videos to some of our other coworkers, and the next thing you know, we just got blocked. They weren't responding. People we thought were our friends, and I was like, wow, now I really hate this because I was thinking about just transferring another office. And now I'm like, no, it's not. Another office won't help. I had relocated to Atlanta for the opening of someone's office. And once I just saw all the other videos, I told my other friend in Dallas, I'm like, I'm not going to transfer to another office. I'm done with all of this entirely. I don't want to do it.
Right. What ultimately led to you deciding to no longer deal with this business?
They wanted us to work 7 days a week from open to close, Sam's Club, and but only clock in our hours for the 5 hour shifts.
Hmm.
And so I was pretty much working like 80, 90 hours a week, getting paid for 40. And we were told we had to do it. And that wasn't really helping. And then they're like, just it's just temporary. Don't worry. Like we'll start getting some interviews once people start working. Then months were going by, and if we got an interview, it was like one a month, two a month, and then I just kept noticing like the same scripts. Um, I was heading to the store one day, and it was super early. There was a Target next to it, so I figured I was going to go to Target, and I got a nail in my tire, and I had a flat tire. So I called them, had someone go there and show up, so if everything said I was fine. And by the time I was done fixing my tire, it was about an hour after my scheduled shift. And I'm like 200 feet away. So I was like, hey, I'm on my way. I'm done. Like, I'll be right there in a minute. And they're like, actually, we don't want this stress to affect you. So we think it's best you just go home and come back tomorrow refreshed. And I was like, it's a tire. I grew up in Texas. I can change a flat tire. I'm here. Why can't I work? And they just kind of left it at that and wouldn't respond. So I went home, and then the next day I had about 7 or 8 different people say, "Hey, so I heard that you were late to your scheduled shift yesterday. We really need to make sure that we keep that in order. You can't really, you can't do that stuff." And I was like, okay, I got this flat tire like 2, 3 hours before my scheduled shift. I just, it took a while to still get. I'm a little girl, like I can do it, but it takes me some time. And then I had to wait at the tire place. And they're like, oh, we don't really need like don't say any excuses, just like leave it at that. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, I got it. And then they're like, yeah, next time when you're driving through construction, stick to the left lane. That way you don't have to get this nail in your tire. I'm like, that tire just cost me like $300. You really think that I wanted this nail in my tire? And I just kept getting it all day. And then when I became a campaign manager, I just noticed we would get yelled at by our owner for things that would happen, like the entry level will do, and we weren't like on them. And some of the things were like really small, and like looking at your phone before meeting started. Who cares if you glance at your phone? If meeting starts at 7:45 and it's 7:15 and they glance at their phone, why am I going to get onto them for that? And it was really awkward. Like everyone had to keep everyone else in check, and I just felt like it was, we were each other's keeper. It felt like North Korea. Like if they're not going to tell them, if I'm not going to tell them, then they're going to tell on me. So I need to make sure I'm not doing anything wrong, and if I do something wrong, I need to find something on them and get that first so I don't get in trouble. I was told I need to prioritize my allergies. Oh, okay. We had just moved to Atlanta, horrible allergies. I'm allergic to trees, and took an allergy pill and hadn't kicked in yet. And they were mad at me that I was still stuffy, my eyes were red, and I was a little congested. And I look at this girl and I'm just like, really? Really? And I looked at her, I'm like, do you suffer from allergies? No. Okay, then I told her, I'm like, well, politely, I asked you to mind your own. You don't know what I'm dealing with, mind your own. And she's like, well, it's affecting your work and you really need to prioritize. And I just couldn't believe that. So it was things like that that were constantly being said, very hypocritical things. And it was like nothing you ever did was right. And you would get the feedback from your owner or your leader. I mean, my owner was my new leader. And you would get the feedback and you would implement it the next day, but it was still wrong. And it had nothing to do with the product. It was all you. You didn't sell it right. But we didn't sell products. We did like signups.
Yeah.
So sign people up for Just Energy. And they kept saying, oh, we're not selling anything. We're not selling anything. You need to remember that. But you're still supposed to use the 5 steps to a conversation because they're the proven selling technique.
Yeah.
And it just felt very hypocritical. And I've sold things. I've always surpassed my goal. Every now and then we would help another office doing some other sales and always surpass my goal. And then we go back to Just Energy or DirecTV or the construction signups near the exit. And none of that. No, I never saw anyone get enough. I never saw anyone make their quota. Very rare if they did, and they always had to stay there the whole day. And their quota was barely enough for their hourly wage. And I just didn't understand how people were making it out of this. I just started noticing I was working every single day of the week. 7 days a week. I was always working weekends. If I had like a Wednesday off, I still had to go to morning meeting. And then since I was off, I had to stay and do teach backs and teach all the conversations and the steps and stuff. And I still wasn't getting home until like 2 or 3. I would get there around 7:15, and I would maybe get home around 3, 4, sometimes later.
And that
That's
would
when,
be on days you're not selling.
yes,
Okay.
days I was off.
Your off days, right. Okay. Gotcha.
Yes. And they would want us to do these dinners, the one-on-ones, and it was also always like on my days off that I had to do it, and it was always clear on the other side of the Metroplex. So if our office was like down here, we would meet up for dinner over here, and then I would go home like way over here. And I noticed in my first month there, I spent about $400 in gas.
Mm.
Was usually spending about 150,
Yeah.
and I couldn't believe it. My insurance went up because they noticed I used more mileage than I said I did, so it went from $90 to 180.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was worrying about that, and I was losing money. This job, I was making about half what I made previously. I didn't know what to do. I tried to talk to my leader, but every time I brought up my concerns, I was being negative. And then when I was being negative, I noticed I was either taken off the schedule or given less days. I was only on the schedule 3, 4 days a week, and like I can't do that. Every paycheck, it would say my hours were between 30 and 35, and I was told it was full time. So I didn't know what was going on. I was making like 200 to 240 a week, and like definitely could not survive off of that. I still kept trying to make the best of it. I thought, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'm great at sales, great at meeting people. I could easily, I've been a manager before at my last job. I can easily do this and just make it to owner, like no problem. I would meet up with my owner, and he was incredible. I really liked him. He was a little cheesy. He had that car salesman face, that big, like fake smile all the time, and to the point where like he had to be on something. And I found out later he was. And I would have these one-on-ones with him, and he always forgot the one-on-ones. He always forgot things that he had scheduled, but he was really good at talking you up and inspiring you. And I would ask him, what do I need to do? And he kept saying, you're doing really great. Like, I have nothing for you right now. You're doing really, really well. And I was learning really quick. Other campaign managers were complimenting how well I was doing too. Wasn't engaging in the negative talk. I didn't associate with any of the other entry level people. I acted like a leader before I was a leader. And then we found out about that they were opening an office for Just Energy in Atlanta. Our office kind of did some Just Energy. Only a few people were certified in it. And they're like, oh yeah, they're making a lot of money. They're making like an extra $1,000 on top of their paychecks. And so I'm like, okay, like, hey, I've, always wanted to move to Atlanta. I almost moved there a few years ago. I think this is kind of like a good calling. And they told us like, hey, we really want, like whoever goes out there, they're going to get promoted next. Like we want to fast track their promotion because they move out there. It really helps. Okay, perfect. So was not really in the best financial place to move. And I discussed that with my parents, but we figured it was a huge opportunity. A few months in, I'll be promoted, September at the latest. And, all work out because that's what they tell us, make the sacrifice now for the reward later.
Yeah.
And so we go out there and work all the time. Nothing new to me, totally fine with it. I don't really mind it, just working all the time. But Just Energy wasn't working out. They wanted us to get people to sign up to change their natural gas provider for a 3-year contract that was on average about 40 cents per third more expensive than any other provider out there. So not only do they want us to like sell or get people to sign up and sign a 3-year contract, but they also want us to increase their bill by about like a third to double. And they told us, hey, they're the most competitive. In Dallas, it really works. Some other people in Dallas were, telling us, "Oh, yeah, this is worth it. I love Just Energy. I'm so glad that we get to onboard with them." And then my leader also kept telling me to the girl back in Dallas. She kept telling me to not do Just Energy and to move to Laveau. And I was wondering why. No offense to her, because I do like her, but she didn't care about me at all. She hated her life, hated her job until she moved over. But she just kept strongly encouraging me to move to Laveau and not Just Energy. And I didn't know why until after I moved to Atlanta. But I found out they don't make crap from Just Energy. They were told to say that to encourage people to sign up to do Just Energy. And what they didn't tell us is that we were getting a lower percentage commission doing Just Energy in Atlanta. What they didn't tell us is that their rates are not comparable. They told us the average rate out there was like $2, and we were doing it was like 69 cents per therm. And we're like, oh wow, that's a huge decrease. Like, wow, that's great. What they didn't tell us is that no, the people who are on the fixed rate, majority of people pay 27 cents. The only time they pay $2 is if they're on a variable rate, and $2 was like the highest it had ever been, and it was right after the hurricane that happened last year. They didn't tell us that. And it was like 1 month that it went that high. And after the hurricane, everyone went onto the fixed rate to make sure that it stayed. And so I found out all these discrepancies. I've been really good at reading contracts. I've been certified in contract writing, and I just noticed there's a lot of loopholes, a lot of weird stuff going on. I wasn't really liking it, and I was doing the math. I knew people in Georgia, so I was getting their bills, and I was reading through it and doing the math, and I'm like, okay, this girl pays like $70 for this last month. If she had it on our rate, it would have been 130. So I just didn't really like that. So I brought it up to my boss, and it was just me being negative. And it was like, let him deal with it. Let him, he knows how to handle it. He knows what's going on. And then he started a few weeks later wanting us to keep extremely detailed notes about everything. What other customers are saying, like the feedback, what their rates are, who they're with, when's their contract over, how long was their contract. And so we started sending in all that information. And then all of a sudden, they're like, okay, we're not going to do Just Energy anymore. I mean, we're still going to do Just Energy, but we're also going to merge into DirecTV and the cell phones over there. So we're going to start doing Sprint, Verizon, and AT&T. And then in a few months, we're going to start this home security system. Oh, I'm forgetting the name of it. But we're also going to do that. And I'm like, you want us to do like 5 different things in one booth? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, how is that going to work? They're like, oh, you just say, hey guys, so who's your, or quick question, who's your your cable provider? And they're like, oh, DirecTV. Oh yeah, cool, no worries. What about your natural gas provider? Who's that? Yeah, oh, okay, Georgia Natural, and you're happy with them? Okay, cool. So what about your cell phone? Oh, so you got the iPhone 6 there. You ready to upgrade? Here, let's go see if you're eligible for an upgrade. I'm like, we can't say all that to one person. I'm like, think about how many people we can get to still stay there after hello. How are we going to get all these people there to stay and let them know everything that we do? And then all of a sudden, we weren't doing Just Energy at all anymore. We needed to turn in all our stuff. So we asked about it, and you would think that in our circumstance, we would have been, our owner would have been a little bit more open to us. There was the owner and 5 of us. All the boys lived in one apartment together, and all the girls lived in one apartment together in the same apartment community. Our buildings were right across from each other. He like finally admitted that it was like a terrible company, and like what they gave us, like the rates and everything, the commission. In order to break even with the commission, we would have had to do 10 to 12 signups a day, 7 days a week, or 6 days a week, I should say. And 6 days a week, 10, 12 signups. Man, we were lucky if we got one in a day.
Yeah.
The majority of the weeks I got one in a week, or I got zero entire weeks.
Yeah, I remember seeing like the DirecTV guys in Sam's Club, and if they got one sign up a day, that's an awesome day right there. And because I worked across them selling everything, and I can't imagine getting 10 a day. It's not realistic.
Oh, yeah. And the signups were pretty easy. I mean, we could easily sign someone up. It took maybe 10, 15-minute process, but they always told us, say, oh, real quick, takes less than 2 minutes. No, it doesn't. They would never, they would refuse to believe that anything you did or said had anything to do with any type of skill, any type of like just reading and recognizing people, anything. It was, if it didn't work, it was your mentality. If it did work, it was your mentality. And it just honestly would have nothing to do with that. Even if they don't really see the talent in you, if they just like you for whatever reason, then you would be their project. And I never felt that it was based on skill or knowledge or anything. It was whoever that they could change the most. That's who they wanted. It was whoever they can warp the most. Because I noticed my owner, when I first started, he didn't really always dress that great. He wore suits, but he didn't have any style. He didn't know what looked right. And then right before he was promoted, he like had a tailor or something. All of a sudden, he was putting really nice suits. And some of the guys in there, they would. It was always, oh, when I first started, I looked like a slob. I didn't wear socks with my shoes. Once I wore a robe to meeting instead of a blazer because I didn't feel like it. And we hear these stories, not just from like people in my office, but other owners. You always heard these stories how they were the absolute worst, and then now they're an owner. And so you're like, okay, but if you weren't the absolute worst, then you didn't have any much room for improvement. And that was always when it was really bad and impossible. I would see people who were constantly selling, but they weren't improving their mentality the way they wanted. They weren't pulling these tricks and stuff. If they didn't make it to team nights, they obviously didn't care enough. They could make their quota every single day. If you needed a day off, you didn't care enough. You weren't there. You weren't serious. Oh, how dare you go to your best friend's wedding instead of working? Do you want to become an owner? Do you want to fulfill your goals? Like, think of your SMAC goals. Is this really the path you want to lead? You need to prove to us that you're serious about this. And you just could have no life. And my friends, they're like, wait, what do you mean you're in Atlanta and you haven't done one thing out there? You've been in Atlanta for like 4 months now. You haven't done anything? Like, well, I went hiking on my one day off. And they're like, that's it? But we had no life. And if you questioned it, you weren't serious. You were negative. You were obviously not, didn't care about the opportunity because you weren't trying. One of the guys that moved out there, he took out another loan just to afford rent. He didn't use the money on anything else but just rent and bills because we were making so low money that he couldn't afford anything. And there was, some people in there that, had a huge savings. One guy, he kept dipping into his savings once a week, and he worked really hard on his savings. And one of the guys and he and I were really good friends, and just started noticing like things were getting weird. And he told me he had a crush on me, and straight I told him no. I mean, one, wasn't interested, but two, dating is a huge no-no in there. And I don't know if they tell everyone this, but the reason you're not allowed to date in the company is not because, hey, we don't want favoritism, we don't want weird things going on, we don't want other people, like what if it ends badly, what if you guys, like, he cheats on you or something. It had nothing to do with that. They didn't want people to date because if one person had a negative experience, if they got fired or if they ended up quitting, They were afraid that the person who quit would tell their significant other all the true horrible things that were going on behind the scenes. And then that person would quit too and then tell other people. That was the real reason they didn't want anyone dating. But that did not stop our owner from dating the receptionist, which was also a huge no that no one cared about. And we found out that there was another owner whose office we were sharing temporarily. We found out his wife was his receptionist too.
Mhm.
And they just all kind of dated each other, and it was really weird. But this coworker, after I told him like, "Hey, I'm not interested. It's not going to happen." I don't know if he was like upset or something, but I didn't tell the owner because I didn't want him getting in trouble because he had feelings. But then I started noticing that my owner would get on to me for things like, "Hey, you told this guy, I'm making up their names, but Alex, you told him that like something bad happened today and he didn't get any signups today because you were negative." I was negative? Like how? And it was like nothing I did or said was ever right. There was no like horseplay with your coworkers in the morning. You couldn't like just josh around. You couldn't say anything because it was negative. So we were doing this, and then okay, can't make your quota. All of a sudden, we're doing DirecTV. We're all back to entry level, starting DirecTV. Then a few weeks later, we start doing the phones, all back to entry level. And it's like I just finally started peaking up, and I got like one interview, and they were terrible interviews. And I was asking Drew, I'm like, where are we getting these people? Because they're coming in thinking this is entirely something different. And I understand you guys, stretch it a little bit. Like there's some things you can't say. Like I get you can't say the names of like the products and everything, but you need to make this a little bit more what it is because the ad I had, I knew I was going to be selling something. And but he was just really vague. And then on the phone, he wouldn't even tell them that they were going to a Sam's Club for their second interview. So I had so many, I mean, not so many interviews. Of the interviews that I had, I think I had about 20 to 25 set up, but only 5 actually show for the interview. And I had some people call me like, "Hey, the address took me to a Sam's Club." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we're gonna be conducting the interview in a Sam's Club." "Yeah, never mind," and they would leave. And this is Atlanta traffic. We're on the far outskirts of town. Our office is in the middle. We're near the Braves Stadium, and it's taking like an hour, 2 hours to get to every single location. So now I'm spending like over $500 a month on gas, and I'm making $10 an hour. And at first sometimes you think $10 an hour that's not that bad, but when you're paying about as much in gas as you are in rent, you don't have much money for other things. My last 2 months in Atlanta, I lost so much weight. At first, it was like, "Oh, hey, girl, you're losing some weight. You look good. You're looking healthy." To, "Hey, you lost a lot of weight really, really fast. Are you okay?" Because we were working like from 7 a.m. to like 10 p.m. every day. And once we started doing DirecTV, we didn't have every other Monday off anymore. And then we found out our old Dallas office got closed. And we didn't really know what was going on, but we heard a lot of stories. The owner was on like drugs or something because he was always sleep deprived, so he's taking supplements and stuff. And then we just found out other things, but he was there one day and then his office was cleared out the next day. And they didn't believe that. And I heard other stories about that too, where the office was there one day, the office was there not there the next day. And if you asked about it, you were being negative, and they would turn it on you. "Why are you being negative? Why are you questioning this?" We find out not only are we doing DirecTV, but we're also going to do these phones. So now we have these new stores where we're taking over the phone department. And they tell us a couple days before we launch, "Oh, by the way, the Sam's employees just found out today that they're either getting fired or they're being transferred to another department, and because we're taking over the phones. So people may be a little hostile to you, just like no matter what you do, be nice and try your best. Don't feed into it. Don't get angry. I'm like, wait, we just like took their jobs. Like, okay, wow, damn, okay. And they didn't really give us any forewarning about this. And so the Sam's Club I was placed, I found out that girl who did mobility months ago at a different location got transferred to the bakery there. She cornered me in a bathroom because she thought I knew that I was going to take her job, that conversation we had months prior. Man, in my head, this is like this biggest freak accident in the world. And she corners me in this bathroom and was like, yeah, I went to the store manager and he told me it was true. Like, I can't believe you just walk in there all chipper and happy to be taking my job. And I'm telling her, like, girl, I had no clue in the world that was actually going to happen. I was like, it was just a weird situation. I was tired. I was running off of 2 hours of sleep at that point. I didn't get home till like 3, or I didn't get to Atlanta until 3, and I had to wake up a couple hours later. And I'm exhausted, and we're in this new city, and I try to tell her this, and it just gets weird. And I noticed a lot of hostility in that whole electronics department. No one would come to electronics at all. And one assistant manager who was in a different department was the only one trying to help. And customers were complaining that no one was over there. These girls would not go over there. They were telling us to do things wrong. They wouldn't give us keys, which we were supposed to have. They were constantly screaming at us and telling everything we did wrong. And I started hearing other employees talking crap about me. That's that girl who stole blah, blah, blah's job. You know, blah, blah, blah. She's in the bakery. And it just felt like a lot of hostility. And every time I would have a customer who was trying to get DirecTV or get their phone, get a new phone or something, the manager, the assistant manager the supervisor in charge of that area would come over and purposely interrupt it, purposely say, you can't do this. And so I called my boss. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, every time I get a person, when I'm in the middle of the process, because they knew if you already started the process and you canceled it, it's a mark against you. And if you have too many of those cancellation marks, you can get fired. And so I told him, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, this girl cornered me in the bathroom, and I was being negative. And he's like, you want to be an owner, you need to overcome this. He's like, I'm sick of you asking me for advice. You need to just figure it out on your own. You need to be the leader. You need to be the manager. Do it yourself. So I'm like, okay. So I was like, okay, let's see. With my last job, like, I had to go to stores and redo their whole sales plan. And I've faced hostility before. So I'm like, I can do this. And it didn't work. And after like 2 weeks of it, just getting every person I was about to do a sale with, they would interrupt. So finally I call the manager out. I'm like, what is going on? Why can't I do my job? Why will you not let me? And she kept saying I was refusing to listen. So we brought the store manager in who was on my side and told her, you need to stop this. So I told my boss, and he's like, okay, you go to this store tomorrow. I'll go to your store, and I'll get to the bottom of this, and I'll see what's going on. I'm like, thank you. Okay, I'm thinking things are like good now. Like, he's going to finally help me after this lady like is like screaming at me and I can't do anything. Figured he's finally going to get involved. And I mean, words cannot describe the hostility I was facing in this store. I couldn't do anything at all. I couldn't even leave the area. They would report me if I left the area. Even if I would tell them I was going to lunch, they would report me. They were reporting me to Sam's. They were reporting me to their managers. They're reporting me to like our higher ups, like above my boss's head, and they were trying really hard to get me fired. And every day I came in, they were pissed that I was still there. And so I just didn't know what to do. And then the next day, that night, I called my boss for the breakdown call, and I asked him like how to go at the store, and he's like, oh yeah, it was good. I didn't get any hostility. I'm like, yeah, because they don't blame you for taking these poor girls their jobs. They blame me. And he's like, yeah, well, I didn't face anything. It was good. Like, I don't know. Oh, I'm getting another call. I'll talk to you later. And then I was like, hey, wait, do you know the schedule? Because it's Saturday night. We don't have the schedule for Sunday. And he's like, oh, I'm still trying to figure it out, but I think you and this other guy are gonna have the day off. I'm like, okay. So we hang up and I call that other guy. I'm like, hey, so apparently we have the same day off tomorrow. Do you like want to go do something? And he's like, no, I'm working. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I just talked to Drew and he said I was working. Okay, whatever. So the next day I found out everyone is working on a Sunday but me. We only had 3 stores at the time. So really we only need 3 people to work and there's 6 of us. And then Monday morning or Sunday night he calls me and says we need to talk. So Monday morning I go in there and I talk to him and he just tells me, yeah, this store said that you're really rude and you're screaming and they kept trying to help you and you refused their help and you kept telling them that you know what you're doing and you're the one in charge here and that you were bragging about stealing this girl her job and all this stuff and they were they kept saying that I was purposely not doing things right. I was purposely letting scammers come in and costing the store money. I was like taking bribes and just all this crazy stuff. And he's like, they don't want you coming back in this store. And he's like, why didn't you do something to me before it escalated this high? Like, why didn't you talk to me? I was like, I did. And I was like, no, I did the right things for you. Refused to listen. You refused to help me out. And I'm like, and now I'm in trouble. So the owner's telling me that I'm constantly negative and I'm the reason that no one's getting their goals in, no one's getting their quota in. He said he's not going to put anyone on my team. I asked him specifically, how was I being negative? And he could not give me one example. And I was like, was I negative in Dallas? No. I was like, don't I have the best reviews out of anyone on the team? Yes. So how am I being negative? Is this I felt like that they were trying to purposely put me down to excuse the fact that the office and the product itself wasn't working. So instead of being honest, like, dude, it's not working. Like, hey, we're trying to find something else. Like, I get it, it's not working. Instead, it was, nope, it's your fault. It's not us. This works. Everyone wants DirecTV. It's your fault. So I go home and I start talking to people from the Dallas office. And these are people that know my owner, they know me, and they know everyone on our team. And finally, I was just like, I need to be honest. I don't want anything I say to be me negative and, me negging out. I was like, I need someone I can trust and tell them everything and just get an honest response and not a scripted answer. And I called up this one person who was great with that and told him everything. And he was like, and you're still there? He's like, I would have quit ages ago. He's like, I had no clue all of this was happening. Like, why are you still there? And then I found out something similar happened to him too when they went from doing the home improvement to Just Energy. His first week doing Just Energy, he couldn't make his quota. And he was one of the same people who was the only person who was certified to do Just Energy when we were doing home improvements. The one that they told us he was making $1,000 a week on top of the home improvements. And he's like, yeah, that was a lie. They made me say that. So then the next day, it's my last day. We're in a meeting, and this regional director comes in and just gives us this pep talk all about if you don't want to be here, if you're not honest, if you're not here to like give this your whole like heart and everything, and you're not serious about this opportunity, then there's a door. Like, we're not going to baby you. We're not going to help you, even though I saw their favorites get babied and pushed all the time. And the things he was saying, some of this stuff felt really directed towards me. And I ended up finding out later that my boss talked to him about me, but everything was hidden. He didn't tell him about me telling my boss, hey, these people are harassing me. They're cornering me in the bathrooms where there's no cameras. Like it's getting really hostile here. He didn't tell the director all that. He told him, oh, I was being negative and I was pushing the whole team down because they were asking him, why is your team not making numbers? And he didn't want the blame. He put it on me. And in that moment, I just thought, I can't be here. And I just, after meeting, I left. I went home. I packed all my stuff up in an hour and I left without telling anyone. And it was the craziest thing I'd ever done. I never quit a job unless I had to move or I found something better. But I packed everything up and I left, and not one person called me to ask me, like, what happened? How am I doing? No one's checked up on me. They've all completely X'd me out. And when I moved back to Dallas, I wanted to take a few weeks to recover and recoup. And then I was going to go for another, just transfer to another office. And then I was talking to one of my friends, and she brought her other friend, and I met this person a couple times. And she was like, I haven't seen you in years. So we started talking about what I used to do and then what I did back in, I lived in Las Vegas and what I did there. And she's like, will you send me your resume? Like, I'm going to send it to my boss because I think we could really use someone like you in our company. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I ended up getting a really nice job offer. I was making a decent salary. I was making 50,000 a year, full benefits. I actually have weekends off. Like, this is Labor Day weekend. Everyone kept asking me what plans I made. I'm not used to making weekend plans. I'm used to working. I'm not used to having days off. I'm not used to being able to plan things. You just realize they feed you with all this stuff that you can't find better. You can't do better. No, those corporate jobs, they don't care about you. My job is paying for my education and finish my degree in mechanical engineering so I could work for the company and make a six-figure salary instead. And I'm just like, I didn't grow up with them. Like, they don't know my parents. I didn't get the job that way. And I'm like, they really do care about me and they try to help and they understand we have lives and they understand all these things. And just every day being in this new job, I realized how truly horrible this job was, how much it pushed down my self-confidence. My friends thought I abandoned them. My family thought I was just too good for them. I kept getting, my family would yell at me, you don't like us, you don't care about us, you think you're too good or something because you work all the time, you never make time for your family, you're never doing anything. And your friends, they think that you just move on and that you don't want to talk to them. And they try to keep in touch with you, and then you can never do anything with them. You don't even have time to text back. And you just don't have time to do anything. And then you can't talk to them about work because they know, like, hey, this is not right. And I just kept thinking, okay, so if I go back into another office and I get promoted, I become an owner in 3 months. Do I really want to be an owner? Do I want to be an owner and feed the same crappy lines and tell other campaign managers, ooh, you got a nail in your tire? That's just another excuse. Next time you should drive on the left side of the road. Do I want to keep having those scripted messages to people? Do I keep want to put people down in a disguise that it's inspirational? I didn't. And I couldn't do that for years. I didn't care if I was making $12 million a year in 2 years. It wasn't worth it to me anymore. And it had nothing to do with the hard work, nothing to do with selling things, but the way they treat each other and the way they say things, and it's this manipulation in there. And that you're never going to be good enough. You're here because they don't want you. We want you. It's a toxic, abusive relationship. That's strictly what it is.
Yeah, just through your experience, it just amazes me the amount of mind control and favoritism and just cult-like mentality that this business has. And it seems like every person I talk to, it just illuminates it more and it just makes it sound even worse. So
Very polite.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you got out, and I'm so happy that you can enjoy weekends now. That I remember when I got out, that was one of the first things I enjoyed was I don't have to be anywhere near a Sam's Club on a Saturday or Sunday, and it was fantastic. So
Yeah.
yeah, you enjoy your free time.
You
If there's
enjoy
one
your
good
phone
thing,
not blowing up. Yeah, your
yeah,
phone will blow up. You'll be home. I used to get calls at like 11 midnight, and I wouldn't answer them, and I would get in trouble the next day because I didn't answer them. Like, no, my phone is
yeah,
off. I remember I was really, really sick once, and I had no proper rest. And finally, on a Sunday, I had rest. I was like, okay, Sunday we close at 6. I can be home by 7. I can get some sleep and then wake up at 5 a.m. the next morning. And we had a teen night that night. And I told my leader, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I had been sick for a month at that point, and it turned into chronic, like I have chronic bronchitis, allergy induced. So
mm,
if I get sick and I don't take care of myself, it gets worse. She gave me this huge, long lecture about priorities and how it's a team night and I really should go. And when I start getting people on my team, like I need to show up and show like, good mentorship and that, good sportsmanship and all this by showing up. Because if I don't show up, then they won't show up. I'm like, cool. I need some sleep. Like I need to take care of myself before this gets worse. And I had a fever, and they wanted me to still go out to team night, but it's very strongly encouraged.
right.
We're not telling you you have to, but we're just seeing it looks kind of bad to other people.